Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're tackling some pretty big concepts, dignity and respect.
Yes.
And you've given us quite the challenge here.
Yeah.
With a stack of legal documents, academic papers, even your own personal notes about how this all plays out in Israel.
Yeah.
So get ready. We're going to untangle these ideas, explore their real-world consequences, and see how they apply in a diverse and sometimes divided society.
Very.
It's really fascinating how these ideas, dignity and respect, can feel so abstract, but actually have a huge impact on everything from personal relationships to international law.
Absolutely.
And you know me, I always like to start with the basics.
Of course.
So let's define dignity.
Okay.
Turns out there's a philosophical side and a legal side to this coin.
Yep.
What's the difference?
Yeah. Philosophically, dignity is all about inherent worth. Okay. It's the idea that simply by being human, each and every one of us, you be everyone listening, has an intrinsic value.
Okay.
It can't be earned.
Got it.
And it can't be taken away.
Okay, so that's the philosophical bedrock. But then how does that translate into law?
How do we protect this dignity in the real world?
Exactly.
That's where legal systems come in.
Okay.
They create laws and social norms that safeguard dignity by protecting people from things like humiliation, discrimination, or unjust treatment.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And that brings us to Israel. You are deep in the weeds with their basic law, human dignity and liberty.
Yeah.
Passed in 1992.
1992.
From what I understand, it's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely a cornerstone of their legal system.
Wow.
Declaring dignity as a fundamental right for every citizen.
Interesting.
And it doesn't stop at just stating this right. The law has a wide reach, influencing everything from personal freedoms, like privacy and expression, to social and economic rights, like access to education and healthcare.
So it's like this law sets the stage for how individuals should be treated within Israeli society.
Yeah.
But has this law actually been put into practice?
Definitely the Israeli Supreme Court has used this basic law to make landmark decisions, often taking an expansive view of what dignity entails.
Okay.
We're talking about rulings that protect minority rights, promote gender equality, and uphold the autonomy of individuals.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
I'm starting to see how something as seemingly abstract as dignity can have tangible impacts on people's lives.
For sure.
But it makes you wonder, why bother enshrining something like this in the law?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It might seem obvious.
Yeah.
But codifying respect for dignity into law serves as a vital safeguard.
Okay.
Think of it as setting a clear standard for how we as a society treat each other.
Okay.
It helps balance competing rights and interests.
Yeah.
And even shape social norms in a positive direction.
So it's like saying, okay, this is the baseline. We might disagree on a lot of things.
Yep.
But this is where we draw the line.
Precisely. Laws don't create dignity.
Right.
But they can reinforce and protect it.
Yeah.
It's a powerful statement about the values a society chooses to uphold.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got this idea of inherent dignity protected by law, but now we're getting into the really thorny territory.
Yeah.
The stuff that was keeping you up at night.
Oh, yeah.
What happens when people do things that are well undignified?
Yeah.
Does everyone, regardless of their actions, still deserve to be treated with dignity?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it lies at the heart of many legal and ethical debates.
Right.
There are compelling arguments on both sides.
All right, let's unpack those arguments. From what I gathered, a key point for treating everyone with dignity, even wrongdoers, is this idea of intrinsic worth.
Yes.
It goes back to that philosophical idea we talked about earlier, that dignity is tied to simply being human, not to our actions.
Correct. Philosophers like Immanuel Kant argued that treating people as ends in themselves, not just as means to an end, is crucial.
I see.
To deny someone dignity based solely on their actions creates a dangerous slippery slope.
Okay.
It opens the door to discrimination and systemic abuse, where certain groups are deemed less deserving of dignity.
And history is full of awful examples of what happens when societies go down that road.
Yes.
Slavery caste systems, genocide, it's a pretty stark warning.
It is.
Upholding the principle of universal dignity acts as a powerful safeguard against these atrocities. It compels us to recognize the shared humanity in everyone, even those who've committed terrible acts.
Yes.
This doesn't mean condoning their actions, but rather recognizing their inherent worth as human beings.
Precisely.
Okay, so even if we don't agree with someone's actions, even if we find them morally reprehensible, we still have to acknowledge their basic human dignity.
Exactly.
But as you pointed out, there's another side to this argument. It can feel like sticking to this idea of inherent dignity no matter what might undermine justice.
That's right.
How do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing if we're constantly saying everyone deserves to be treated with dignity?
It's a real dilemma.
It is a real dilemma.
And honestly, one I've been wrestling with myself.
Same here.
Where do we draw the line?
Yeah, where do we draw the line?
Does a murderer, for example, still deserve the same level of dignity as, say, a Nobel Peace Prize winner?
That's the question.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Does someone forfeit their right to dignity through their actions?
Honestly, it's tough. On one hand, I believe in second chances and rehabilitation. But on the other hand, it's hard to reconcile the idea that someone who's committed a truly horrific act should be afforded the same level of dignity as someone who's dedicated their life to helping others.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
And there aren't any easy answers.
Right.
But I think the key to navigating this moral maze is understanding that respecting someone's dignity doesn't equal condoning their actions.
Okay.
And that brings us to the crucial distinction between dignity and respect.
All right. You've mentioned this distinction a few times now.
I have.
Let's break it down from what I've been reading. Okay. Dignity seems to be this inherent, non-negotiable thing tied to simply existing as a human being.
Exactly. Dignity is that baseline acknowledgement of a person's worth. It doesn't matter what they've done, their social status or their circumstances.
Right.
It's inherent to their being.
Yeah.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
You simply, by existing, have value.
Okay.
Full stop.
I'm with you so far.
Okay.
But then how does respect fit into this?
Well, it feels like it's more about actions and behavior, right? Yeah. Precisely, respect, unlike dignity, is earned.
Okay.
It's conditional based on recognizing specific qualities, accomplishments, or behaviors in someone.
Yeah.
You might respect a colleague for their dedication to their work or admire a friend for their unwavering loyalty.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean you have to respect their taste in music.
Right.
Or agree with their political views.
Okay, so respect is more like admiration or approval based on someone's character or choices.
Exactly.
Whereas dignity is this fundamental recognition of their humanity, regardless of those choices.
You've got it, and here's where it gets really interesting. You can withhold respect from someone without violating their dignity.
Now, that's an important distinction.
It is.
Can you give me an example to illustrate this?
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of concrete examples.
Okay.
Helps me wrap my head around things.
Sure. Let's say you have a family member.
Okay.
Who holds beliefs you find morally reprehensible.
Okay.
You might vehemently disagree with them and choose not to engage in conversations about those beliefs.
Okay.
Because you don't respect their perspective.
Right.
But you can still treat them with basic dignity.
Yeah.
You don't shout them down, resort to insults, or deny them basic courtesy simply because you disagree.
So even if I find someone's actions or choices completely disrespectful, I still have a moral obligation?
You do.
To treat them with that basic level of dignity?
Precisely because their dignity isn't dependent on your approval or on whether you condone their actions.
Okay.
The fundamental aspect of their existence as a human being.
Yeah. Okay. I'm starting to really see why this distinction is so important.
Good.
But let's take a step back.
Okay.
Why does this matter in the grand scheme of things? Yeah. How does understanding this difference between dignity and respect actually play out in the real world?
It's crucial for a number of reasons.
Okay.
First, blurring the lines between dignity and respect can lead us down a dangerous path.
How so?
If we start believing that someone's right to humane treatment hinges on whether or not they've earned our respect,
right,
we open the door to all sorts of discrimination and abuse.
Because then it becomes about picking and choosing who deserves decent treatment.
Exactly.
Rather than upholding a universal standard.
That's right.
It creates a system where those in power get to decide who is worthy of dignity.
Right.
Based on their own subjective criteria.
Exactly. It's like saying, well, I don't respect this person's choices.
Right.
So they've forfeited their right to be treated with basic decency. That kind of thinking can be used to justify all sorts of horrific acts.
For sure.
And history is full of tragic examples.
So by holding on to this principle of universal dignity, that it's inherent to every human being,
right,
we're creating a kind of safety net, a moral baseline that protects everyone, even those who've made mistakes or hold unpopular views.
Okay.
It levels the playing field.
You nailed it. And this ties back to what we talked about earlier about ensuring legal systems operate fairly by recognizing that dignity is inherent.
Yeah.
We safeguard against those in power, arbitrarily deciding who deserves humane treatment.
Okay.
It means prisoners, even those who've committed heinous crimes, are entitled to basic care and protection from cruel and unusual punishment.
Right.
It means access to health care isn't determined by someone's social standing or whether we agree with their choices.
Right.
It's about creating a just system that recognizes the inherent worth of every individual.
That makes a lot of sense.
But
it's about balancing the scales of justice.
Yes.
While still upholding basic human decency.
Precisely.
But I keep coming back to the sources you shared about Israel, the legal documents, the academic analyses, even your own notes. It seems like this distinction between dignity and respect becomes even more crucial in a society with such a complex history and diverse population.
For sure.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The sources you shared highlight how challenging it is to apply these concepts in a divided society like Israel.
For sure.
You have Jewish and Arab communities, each with their own unique history, cultural perspectives, and lived experiences, and those experiences inevitably shape how they perceive and experience both dignity and respect.
That's true.
And on top of that, you have the power dynamics to consider, a Jewish majority and an Arab minority. With all the political and social baggage that comes with that, I imagine that makes things even more complicated.
Absolutely. While Israel's basic law guarantees human dignity for all citizens, there's still a lot of debate about how this is actually applied in practice, particularly when it comes to the Arab population.
So even though the law is on the books, there's still this question of whether everyone feels like their dignity is truly being respected and upheld.
Exactly. And this brings us to the heart of why understanding the difference between dignity and respect is so crucial in this specific context.
I'm all ears.
Okay.
How does this distinction play out in the Israeli context?
Well, think about the different perspectives on what constitutes respectful treatment from a Jewish perspective. Respect might be closely tied to loyalty to the state, adhering to certain societal norms, or even supporting specific policies, particularly when it comes to security.
But from an Arab perspective, those same actions or expectations might be seen as disrespectful.
Absolutely.
Even oppressive.
Yeah.
They might feel like their dignity is being violated by policies they see as inherently discriminatory or that don't take their unique history and experiences into account.
Exactly. And this is where those historical narratives we've been talking about come into play. The sources you shared. Discuss how both communities carry the weight of their past. For many Palestinians, the memory of the Nakba, the displacement and dispossession they experienced in 1948. For Jews, the Holocaust. And the establishment of Israel as a refuge and homeland.
So it's like these historical experiences become this lens through which each group views their own dignity and the respect they deserve. It's not hard to imagine how that could make finding common ground incredibly difficult.
It's a challenging situation, without a doubt.
And then you have the role of the state to consider. It's meant to be this neutral guarantor of dignity for all its citizens. But in a divided society, it can be hard for the state to be perceived as truly impartial.
It can.
Especially when you have laws like the nation-state law, which declares Israel as the nation-state of the Jewish people. I remember that being a particularly controversial piece of legislation.
It was.
Yeah.
And it perfectly illustrates how even well-intentioned laws can have unintended consequences when it comes to perceptions of dignity and respect.
Okay.
Well, the nation-state law aimed to affirm Jewish self-determination. It was criticized by many for undermining the sense of equality and belonging among Arab citizens.
Right.
It raised questions about whether a state can truly uphold the dignity of all its citizens while prioritizing the identity and rights of one group over another.
So how do we navigate this? How do we ensure that dignity is genuinely upheld for everyone in a society as complex and divided as Israel?
Yeah.
What's the path forward?
It's a massive question.
Right.
And there aren't any easy answers.
Of course.
But the sources you shared offer some potential pathways forward.
Okay.
Highlighting both the challenges and opportunities.
Give me some examples.
Sure.
What are some concrete steps that could be taken to bridge this divide?
Well, addressing structural inequalities is crucial.
Okay.
Your sources mentioned things like ensuring equal funding for Arab municipalities, reforming land use laws that have historically disadvantaged Arab communities, and promoting bilingual public services that recognize Arabic as an official language alongside Hebrew.
Those sound like practical steps that could make a real difference in people's lives.
They could.
It's about ensuring everyone feels like their identity and culture are valued and respected. But it's not just about material resources and policy changes, right?
You're right.
There's also this need to foster genuine respect between communities.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's where dialogue and understanding come in.
Okay.
Your sources pointed to the potential of Arab-Jewish collaborative projects, educational programs that teach about each other's histories and narratives and grassroots initiatives that bring people together across cultural divides.
So it sounds like it's about creating spaces where people can encounter each other as human beings rather than just representatives of their respective groups and build relationships based on shared humanity.
Exactly. And that's where the distinction between dignity and respect comes full circle.
Yeah.
We can start by acknowledging each other's inherent dignity, that baseline level of respect we all deserve simply by existing.
Right.
And from there, we can work on building mutual respect through understanding empathy and a willingness to see the world through another person's eyes.
This is all starting to make a lot more sense.
Good. I'm glad.
But I can't help but think about the elephant in the room.
Yeah. What's that?
The issue of security.
Ah, yes.
Israel has legitimate concerns about its safety, and those concerns often lead to policies and actions that are perceived as intrusive or discriminatory by the Arab population. How do we balance the need for security with the dignity of all citizens?
It's perhaps the most difficult and delicate challenge of all.
It does seem like a real tightrope walk.
It requires finding ways to ensure security without resorting to measures that dehumanize or marginalize entire communities.
So it's about striking that delicate balance where security measures are effective but not overly broad or intrusive.
Exactly.
It's about finding targeted solutions that don't sacrifice individual liberties and dignity in the name of security.
Exactly. And it requires constant vigilance. A willingness to reevaluate policies and practices, and a commitment to open and honest dialogue with all communities involved.
Right.
There needs to be a genuine effort to understand the lived experiences and concerns of everyone, not just those in the majority.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation.
Good.
And I have to say, I'm starting to see these concepts of dignity and respect in a whole new light.
I'm glad.
But before we wrap things up, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts on all of this.
Okay.
What are the key takeaways you want our listener to walk away with? Yeah, what are the big questions they should be pondering as they continue to grapple with these complex issues?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that fundamental distinction between dignity and respect.
Okay.
Understanding the difference between these two concepts, recognizing that dignity is inherent and universal, while respect is earned and conditional, can help us navigate all sorts of moral dilemmas.
For sure.
Especially in a world that often feels increasingly polarized and divided.
It's like that distinction gives us a framework for engaging with each other, even when we have fundamental disagreements.
Yes.
Even when we find each other's actions or beliefs reprehensible.
That's right.
It reminds us that we have a shared humanity.
Yes.
A baseline level of respect that we owe to each other, regardless of our differences.
Exactly. And I think the other key takeaway is that putting these concepts into practice, actually living out these ideals of dignity and respect, is incredibly complex.
For sure.
Especially in a place like Israel with its unique history and social dynamics.
Yeah.
It requires a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
Addressing systemic inequalities, fostering authentic connections between communities, and constantly striving to find that elusive balance between security and individual freedoms.
It sounds like it's not about finding a perfect solution.
It's not.
It's about ongoing effort, open and honest dialogue, and a relentless commitment to upholding the dignity of all individuals, even in the midst of seemingly intractable conflicts.
Exactly.
It really highlights the fact that building a society that truly values dignity and respect is a continuous process, not a destination.
For sure.
It requires constant reflection, dialogue, and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions.
Absolutely.
Perhaps the most important question you can ask yourself as you continue to delve into these complex issues is this: how can you ensure that your own pursuits, whether it's advocating for justice, seeking security, or even striving for personal fulfillment, don't come at the expense of someone else's dignity?
It's like that old adage, check yourself before you wreck yourself. But applied to respecting the inherent worth of others, we need to constantly be asking ourselves, am I contributing to a world where everyone feels seen, valued, and respected, even those I vehemently disagree with?
Exactly. It's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Yes.
In every interaction, every decision we make.
For sure.
It's not about being perfect. None of us are.
Of course not.
But about striving to align our actions with those values of dignity and respect.
It's definitely a challenge.
It is.
But I think it's a challenge worth embracing.
I agree.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
From the philosophical underpinnings of dignity to the very real challenges of upholding these ideals in a divided society like Israel.
Yeah, and I have to say, this deep dive has left me feeling both inspired and honestly a little overwhelmed.
It's understandable to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
These aren't simple issues with easy solutions.
For sure.
But I think that's what makes them so important to grapple with.
Right.
Upholding dignity and respect is not about following a set of rules or avoiding conflict. It's about actively engaging with the complexities of the world, recognizing our shared humanity, and striving to create a society where everyone feels a sense of belonging, where justice and compassion go hand in hand.
That's a powerful vision.
It is.
And one I think we can all aspire to.
I agree.
So to you, dear listener, we encourage you to keep digging into these ideas.
Yes.
Keep questioning, keep the conversation going.
Please do.
This is just the beginning of a much larger exploration.
Absolutely.
And we can all play a part in building a world that truly values the dignity and respect of every human being.
Absolutely. It's a topic with endless layers. So keep digging, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive today.
I agree.
You know, we started with what seemed like a pretty simple question about dignity and respect.
Right.
But as we've explored it, it's clear that these concepts are anything but simple.
They are complex.
They're deeply intertwined with our values, our legal systems, our history, even our understanding of what it means to be human.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes them so fascinating and so important to discuss.
I agree with you.
So thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise.
And to all of you listening out there, keep those questions coming.
Yes, please do.
Keep challenging yourselves and each other, and keep striving to create a world where dignity and respect aren't just abstract ideals.
Absolutely.
But lived realities for everyone.
I think that's a great goal.
Until next time, take care for you.